I'm David Skidmore. In this lesson, we're going to be focusing on a wide range of interval changes, from thirds all the way up to octaves. And we'll also be talking about mixed meters. Warm-up number 1 introduces us to the sticking we'll be using throughout the lesson, as well as the interval changes that we'll need to make in this lesson. These are all stepwise interval changes, so at this point they should feel pretty comfortable to you. But this exercise is a great opportunity to review these interval changes and to focus on any that don't feel comfortable to you yet. So be sure to play each measure as many times as you'd like. Because we're covering such a wide range of intervals, you'll almost certainly have to shift your thumb position at some point during this exercise. I start with my thumbs in a position that will provide the most strength and stability for this wider interval of an octave. So you'll notice that my left thumb is a little bit over to the left, and my right thumb is a little bit over to the right, so that I've got a nice strong connection between my thumb and first finger in both hands. And when I get to this point, my thumb shifts just slightly so that I've got plenty of range of motion to get to the narrowest intervals that I need to. These shifts in thumb position are really tiny motions, and although they might feel a little bit uncomfortable at first, soon enough they'll become second nature and you won't even have to think about them. The accent pattern in exercise 1 is the same accent pattern you'll be using in the Etude. And these are accents, not tenuto markings, so they can have a little bit of a sharper sound than a tenuto would have. The unaccented notes are pretty repetitive, so they can be played lightly. And you can really think about these unaccented notes as just sustaining the sound from the accented notes. Warm-up number 2 is a simple exercise to reinforce this point. This exercise is just the first measure of the Etude played first without the unaccented notes, and then with the unaccented notes. As you can see, these unaccented notes are played really lightly, and they're just sort of extensions of the sound of the accented notes. The music in this lesson is in mixed meter, which means that the time signature changes pretty frequently, creating an irregular rhythmic feel. Throughout this entire lesson, the speed of the 16th note remains constant. You can pretty much always assume that the smallest subdivision of the beat will remain constant when the time signature changes. However, I've written 16th note equals 16th note in the exercises and the Etude, basically as a courtesy reminder. Take a look at the mixed meter exercise that's a part of this lesson. This exercise asks you to go back and forth between 4/4 time and 6/16 time, which is a shift that you'll have to make a bunch in the Etude. Notice how the 4/4 bars relate to the 6/16 bars. The first 6 notes of the 4/4 bar are exactly identical to the 6 notes that are in the 6/16 bar. One way to count the 16th notes in the 4/4 bar is 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2. And one way to count the 16th notes in the 6/16 bar is 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. So if I was going to count the 16th notes for this entire exercise, I could count it like this: 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Lots of musicians use mixed meters, from Indian classical musicians to prog rock bands like Rush or Animals as Leaders, to Western composers like Steve Reich, to traditional musicians from Bulgaria. If you've never checked out traditional Bulgarian wedding music, I highly recommend that you check it out and try and tap your foot along to it. Let's try this mixed meter exercise with a metronome. If you have a metronome or a metronome app on your phone that you can program, this is a great chance to use that feature. I've programmed the metronome app on my phone to play 2 bars in 4 at 100 beats per minute and 4 bars in 2 at 133 beats per minute. If you do the math, that means that the 16th note will stay constant throughout at the tempo of quarter note equals 100. Let's give it a try. don't have a metronome that you can program, don't worry. You can practice this with a metronome set on steady quarter notes. Because there are 4 6/16 bars, that equates to 6 even quarter notes. If all this math is making your head spin, don't worry. The important thing to remember is that the 16th note stays at constant speed throughout. So if you're working on this lesson and your hands are moving at the same speed throughout, you're doing the right thing. Now that we've talked about mixed meters, take a look at warm-up exercise number 3. This exercise asks you to make all of those interval changes from the first exercise, but now in 6/16 time. Pay attention to the placement of your mallets on the bars as we're going through this, and the shift that has to happen as your right hand goes to the upper manual to play the G sharp. You'll notice that there are no printed phrase markings in this etude. And that, of course, does not mean that you should play this music without musical phrases. Remember that composers will sometimes indicate everything in the written score. They'll write phrase markings and dynamics, tempo markings, everything. But there are other times when a composer will leave certain things up to you, the performer. As you watch my performance of the etude from this lesson, listen for how I create musical phrases by subtle manipulations in the dynamics. Sometimes some accents are more emphasized than other accents, for instance. However, because of the driving rhythmic nature of this etude, I don't actually think that rubato would be appropriate in this case. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.